Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Hub. I'm Michael Wengrzyn, and here for today's show are Alex Strouf and Jackson Jirik. Well, guys, we're back to a full episode this week. Jackson, thanks for taking care of everything last week.
What a champ.
While we weren't here. Did you guys enjoy Halloween weekend at all?
Halloween weekend. It was lovely, yeah. It was a good weekend. Our weather's starting to get bad again, but overall it was a good weekend of sports, as we'll talk about, obviously. But yes, overall I had a wonderful weekend. Thank you for asking.
Good to hear.
I think it was a good weekend, like Michael said. The weather is getting cold, but sports-wise, it was a great weekend for sports here at Stevens Point. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, Jackson and I were on the call for a couple of games this weekend, and now we're today here on the show. We're going to talk about Pointers sports today. The Green Bay Packers lost on Sunday, the Milwaukee Bucks season so far, and of course, do some buy or sell. This past weekend, the UWSP football team hosted UW-Eau Claire for the annual Spud Bowl game at Gorky Field. The Pointers played a solid game from start to finish as they beat down the Blue Goats 40-12. After a sluggish start on their first series, the Pointers would go up 16-6 after the first half. The team offensively dominated the field in the third quarter, making it impossible for the Blue Goats to score until late in the fourth quarter. Senior quarterback Matt Hermanski had a terrific day, throwing for 4 touchdown passes, 2 to fellow senior Jonte Webb and freshman Jeffrey Williams. Hermanski completed 14 of 25 passes for 247 yards. Guys, how important is this win here for the Pointers now here with their second conference win of the season?
It's hard to quantify, Mike, because obviously we're almost done with the season, only a couple of games left, but it is still an important win. And you mentioned it, obviously they got going offensively, which is something that's kind of been questionable the last, I'd say, even month of the season, is what their offense can produce. And 40 points, that's a lot to produce in a football game against a conference rival like Eau Claire. And, you can look at Eau Claire and say, that's not a very good football team. But earlier this season, they beat St. Thomas, who is now going to be a Division I football team in a few years. So I don't think this is a win where you look and say, well, that's a win they should have. Yeah, it is a win they should get, right? But Eau Claire is always an interesting opponent. It's always a good game, better than what we saw on Saturday. But it was very good to see the offense get going and to see Jeffrey Williams, a running back, score 2 touchdowns on the receiving end. Really makes you question, looking forward the rest of the season and into next year, what that backfield is going to look like alongside Jahai Segal and Shamaje Williams. So definitely offensively, you've got to be very pleased with where this Pointers team is at.
Yeah, you go into that. Jeffrey Williams had an amazing day. Michael and I saw that. I think Jonte Webb has done a good job leading him and turning him into a type of player that can be on both sides of the ball, receiving and running. We saw him have some good runs on Saturday, but we also saw him, like you said, compete very well in the passing game. Hermanski, I think, trusts him as his second best receiver right now. I think that's very good for, like you said, the next season. That's obviously a big part now. We're late in the season. We don't have a lot of games left. We're looking to see what we're going to have next year. And showing Jeffrey Williams has the capability of leading this team in the backfield while still being able to receive is a good thing for these Pointers. Yeah,
it's interesting to see how it'll mesh beginning next year. I know we're looking too far ahead. There's still 2 games, both conference games left in this season for the Pointers. But yeah, looking ahead, I mean, obviously Matt Hermanski, we mentioned it at the top, is a senior. Really isn't your usual starter. Max Harrow obviously suffering a season-ending leg injury at the beginning of the year. But to see what Jeffrey Williams and company were able to do in this system with their non-usual quarterback is going to be interesting to see how Greg Breitbach and company implement that going forward in next season. But it's definitely a good sign. 40 points against a conference opponent, 2 games left. And I said it to end my last spiel, but I'll say it again. You've got to be happy with where this Pointers offense is at, scoring 40 against the conference opponent.
It's always huge when you can score 40 or more points during a game. I mentioned this during
even 30 or more, right?
Yeah, 30 more. Actually, I was getting to that point too right here, Alex, is that I mentioned this in the broadcast to Jackson or wherever. In all the games that the Pointers have won, well, there are 3 victories so far in the season, with the exception of their overtime loss to UW-Stout. They scored over 30 points a game. So if the Pointers are able to get more than 30 points a game, they have a good chance of getting the win. Unfortunately, though, there's been times this season where they've played fairly well. Obviously, they had a 2-touchdown loss against UW Oshkosh where they kind of held in there for most of the game, but then again, never really got anything going. So this week where they able to just go back home, kind of regroup after 2 tough losses against UW Oshkosh, UW Cross, and then UW Stout as well in a heartbreaker. Now you come out here, you score 40 points, have just all gears clicking both on offense and defense. It's nice to see it out of this Pointers team here late in the season.
Yeah, for an offense that sputtered the last, like I said, about month and a half-ish, it is definitely a really good sign. And I can't emphasize enough how this is not just that's a team you should beat kind of win. That's a really good win. Winning it by 28 points on top of a team that beat, one of the top D3 programs in their history in the country in St. Thomas. This is a big win. This is a big win, and it's got to give you a ton of confidence moving forward into this last duo that you'll be playing, one on the road and one at home. Yeah,
definitely, for sure. As you mentioned, Alex, the Pointers still have a couple games left on the schedule as they will travel to UW Platteville on Saturday for their final road game of the season. Kickoff against the Pioneers is set for 2 p.m. Now switching to the ice now, and let's get into the big news now with UWSP Sports. The defending national champion UWSP men's hockey team opened up their season versus St. Norbert College on Friday at the KB Willard Arena. After a scoreless first period, the Pointers would get on the board first in the second period with a terrific goal by senior Austin Kelly. Later in the period, while trying to survive a penalty kill, Luke McElhaney will increase the lead to 2 with a shorthanded goal off an outside pass from Ryan McKellar. St. Norbert would not let the deficit last as they would tie things up with 2 goals of their own, but the game would not be settled in regulation. The momentum stuck with the Green Knights in the overtime period as St. Norbert would score the OT winner to win 3-2 and spoil the Pointers' championship banner night. The Pointers would, however, go the very next night out to De Pere and get revenge against the Green Knights as they would win 3-1. Guys, what are the expectations for the program this year, and how difficult is this season going to be in comparison to years past?
I don't think the expectations change at all, Mike. I think the expectation is always to be a national championship quality team, and I think they will continue to be that, and I think they still are that despite an opening night loss. We were spoiled last year as Pointers fans, students. It's an undefeated banner-raising season. That's never happened before. Game number 1 against the number 3 team in the country, an overtime loss, that's nothing to shake your head at. St. Norbert, a very, very good team. And they went in there and they broke their streak of, I forget what it was, I think it was over 40 home wins in a row. 41 home wins in a row that St. Norbert brought into this season, and Stevens Point was able to spoil that for them. It's a very good team, 2 very prestigious programs. The expectation remains the same. How difficult will it be compared to past ones? You have a very different group in comparison to last year, but you still have a very good group because you're Stevens Point men's hockey. So I think, again, the expectation remains the same, and the difficulty will be what it always is. It's not easy to win a natty, and we saw that last year. They had some trouble despite posting an undefeated record. So it's always a different ride. It's always a different roller coaster that you're on throughout the course of a season. It's very early. St. Norbert, nothing to shake your head at a loss to them.
I would agree. I think that the expectation is a national championship team. Obviously, coming off the undefeated season, you probably aren't expected to go undefeated. And I think the best medicine for this team was to lose. I think that creates.
I agree with that, actually. Yeah.
I think that's like the best medicine for them to, okay, get that sour taste in your mouth. Remember what it's like to lose, because they haven't lost since the beginning of 2 years ago now.
NCAA semifinal against Salve Virginia was their last loss before this one.
Exactly. So I think that was the biggest helper for these Pointers is to remember what a loss feels like, and it helps them to be like, okay, you know what, we just lost. They beat us on our home ice, our banner night, when we had a 31-game win streak, not just at home, just overall. That's crazy. They beat us. Let's go into their ice. Let's take one from them. Let's end their streak there. I think that shows that Tyler Kruger's doing a good job with that team, saying, hey, just because they beat us on our home ice doesn't mean we can't do that to them. And that's exactly what they did. And I think that shows how good they are to come back after a loss like that.
And I think you bring up an interesting point. That medicine you referred to, that loss that they took on opening night, you look back, 2 years ago was their last loss. Now you look at the guys that are in the first and second lines for this team, They weren't in this position 2 years ago when this team last took a loss. So on the banner night, I think it's weird to call a loss a good thing, but it's such a long season, it almost is a good thing because you light a fire right away as you kick off this season. A loss being a good thing. I don't know if I've ever spewed those words, but I'm going to spew those words. I think the loss was good.
Definitely. I wouldn't. I mean, it's kind of weird to talk about a loss being a good thing, but you know what? There's really no shame in losing to a program like St. Norbert as well. They're very good. They have a lot of success. They recruit very well, just like UWSP, and that's why these two teams have such a great rivalry, is because of how well these two programs are run. Of course, I think St. Norbert was looking for a little bit of revenge after their NCAA quarterfinal defeat against UWSP last year, losing 3-0. So, of course, both these teams were ranked in the top 5 in the country for G3 hockey as well. So you knew it was going to be a good game. Yep. Nobody got beat by 3 or 4 goals. It was a 1-goal game, got settled in overtime. I think we had a really great game on Saturday if you're a hockey fan, and especially if you're a fan of both of these teams. But, the Pointers are definitely going to get back on track this season. They got a whole new conference outlook this year. They got a new conference opponent coming in now with Northern College joining the WIAC just for hockey. So it'll be interesting to see how well the Pointers step up to the challenge this season.
Absolutely.
So the Pointers now are 1-1 to start off the season, and they have been ranked number 1 in the country to start off the season in the D3 hockey rankings. I can imagine that'll change. They'll host 2 games this weekend against the Scavus Adolphus and the University of St. Thomas. We'll take our first commercial break here on the show, but when we come back, we'll talk about the Green Bay Packers game and some of the other news that has been going on in the NFL. This is the Sports Hub on SBTV.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well. But it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that. And it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
Welcome back into the show. The Green Bay Packers lost the Los Angeles Chargers 26-11 on Sunday out in Carson, California. While the game seemed close on paper in the first half as the Chargers kicked only 3 field goals to lead 9-0 at halftime, the Packers were never really into this game. The team punted the ball in their first 5 possessions, and it would take almost the entire third quarter before the Packers would finally put points on the board. The Chargers offense had a big day against a struggling Packers defense with 442 total yards, while the Packers only put up 184 total yards. Guys, it was a tough loss against the Chargers out there in LA. What are the big factors behind this loss for this Green Bay team?
I want to address one thing first and foremost, and that's people that keep calling this a trap game. Obviously, Los Angeles' record doesn't indicate that they are a powerhouse, but their staff, their roster, their depth chart indicate otherwise. This is still a very good football team. Melvin Gordon finally had his first big game since returning from his holdout in Week 5. He looked terrific on the offensive side. And despite having their 2 starting defensive tackles out in this game, their 2 defensive ends are still 2 of the best in the game in Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. They dominated the Packers' offensive line. Aaron Rodgers was getting hit and pressured all afternoon long. Green Bay is still a really good team, and so is Los Angeles. I think Los Angeles, they were my pick preseason to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I think they are one of the top rosters when it comes to talent in the entire National Football League. However, this game was a wake-up call for Green Bay, and it is what it is. I mean, obviously you don't want to lose on the road like that, especially when it was technically a home game, given how many Packers fans were in Los Angeles yesterday. But it's a bad loss. The offense sputtered. The offense just kind of took a halt all of a sudden after they were riding some momentum the past 4 wins. But nonetheless, they'll get back on track. They have the bye week coming up after this week. this upcoming week. And they'll get back on track. I mean, this is still a top team in the NFC for sure in the Packers. It just was a really bad day, and I think every season consists of very high highs and very low lows. And if you're a Packers fan, fingers crossed that this is the lowest of lows, because yesterday was a very, very poor offensive showing for Green Bay.
Jackson, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, as a fan of a division rival, what do you think were the factors for the Packers losing this game?
Well, honestly, I just think they overlooked it. You know, we talk about this where sometimes a team will just focus. I think this happened to the Badgers, where they just overlooked this game. You know, they were focused on, okay, we win this game. I think they were given, like, since you mentioned how many fans were there in LA, I think they kind of thought, you know, we're going to have a little bit of advantage here, but they really didn't. And I think they kind of overlooked this game a little bit, and you're shaking your head because you disagree. And that's okay, because you and I tend to do that a lot. But I think the Packers kind of just overlooked it. They were kind of expecting to win this game, and I think that's why they lost. As mentioned, the Chargers do have a lot of talent. And I think that's something the Packers weren't prepared for, is how much talent they really had. And I think it was this game where the Chargers really took advantage of how much talent they had and really just went at it. And they showed the Packers, like, you know, our record doesn't define who we are as a team. We have the good players, and we are capable of winning games against good teams. It's like the Packers.
Yeah, I don't know if I consider it an overlook. I think that's something Matt LaFleur and company preached all week, was how good this defense was and how good the offense could be in Los Angeles. Obviously, Phillip Rivers and Matt LaFleur had said this all week. One of the best quarterbacks in the league, the best quarterback in the league. He actually called him at one point at getting rid of the ball, not taking sacks. The Packers were able to sack him twice in the first half, but they weren't able to get to him a ton otherwise. No, I think they were just overpowered by the star power of Los Angeles. I don't think the Packers lose this game 10 times out of 10 if they played it 10 times, but yesterday was the one that they did play, and they ended up losing. I think that the talent on the Los Angeles side speaks for itself, and it should, despite their 3-5 record heading into that game. They're a good team. Matt LaFleur knows they're a good team. Aaron Rodgers knows they're a good team. And he felt that yesterday when Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa were chasing him all afternoon. It's a bad loss. It is a bad loss, despite Los Angeles. I keep saying they're a good team. It is still a bad loss when you're the Green Bay Packers and you are a top team in not only the NFC, but the entire NFL. So where do you go from here? You rebound this weekend and you try to get a win at Lambeau. But nonetheless, it's not what you hope for. As the Green Bay Packers, you look to go 8-1, you look to go 1-0 every week, but now they're 7-2, still in good position. Every team in the NFC North lost this weekend, so it didn't change the race too much. They're still a game ahead of the Vikings, along with the tiebreaker. So overall, you don't like it, but every single home team won on Sunday. So, which is kind of a little tidbit for you outside of the London game where the designated visitor won, but it was in London. So every home team won on Sunday, which is kind of a little fun fact for you.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have the Chargers defense on my fantasy team.
So you were happy?
And, well, actually, here's the thing. I benched them in the hopes that Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the Green Bay Packers would have a big game, but that was definitely not the case. The Broncos defense didn't do me that much better, even though they were able to hold off a sluggish Cleveland Browns team. Yeah, it was a disappointing game overall for Green Bay. Obviously, the running game was plugged up pretty much the entire time. There's nothing really that... Actually, I shouldn't say the run game. The run defense has been allowing too many holes here throughout the last few games. Overall, I think this season the run defense has struggled in a lot of games for Green Bay, and they need to fix up that problem here soon. Because they got a big matchup next week against Carolina, and Christian McCaffrey, of course, is looking like an MVP already.
Yeah, he's an MVP front runner, and Mike Pettin has shown really good signs, especially early in the year in that defense. But there were a couple questionable coverages and different schemes he put out there yesterday against the Los Angeles Chargers that just didn't work out and maybe weren't the smart play. But when you have an elusive back, especially a duo, when you throw Austin Eckler in the conversation with Melvin Gordon for Los Angeles, you have Phillip Rivers, you have guys like Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry offensively as your skill weapons. It's a good team, and unfortunately, Mike Pettin's defense could not get it done. They were able to hold up in the red zone, as you mentioned, 9 points in those first couple drives, all field goals, but then they kind of let loose there in the second half, and Los Angeles was able to take full control of that game.
Yeah, it never really was Green Bay's game to play in from the start. I don't think they really ever showed up, honestly.
Again, fingers crossed that that's the lowest of lows for Green Bay this season.
Well, the second loss of the season will snaps the Packers' 4-game win streak as they fall now to 7-2, but remain 1 game ahead of the Vikings for the lead in the NFC North. They will host the Carolina Panthers at home this Sunday afternoon. While the Packers' loss did garner some headlines on Sunday, it's interesting to take a look at what else happened in the NFL this past weekend. The Miami Dolphins finally got their first win of the season against the struggling New York Jets team, and the New England Patriots are undefeated no more as the Baltimore Ravens took care of them on Sunday Night Football. Guys, 2 questions for you. First, are the Ravens the biggest threat to the Patriots right now in the AFC, and who is now the worst team in the NFL?
Oh my, that's a packed question.
I think
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
going to take care of this one.
Go ahead.
I think if the Patriots were to play the Ravens in a playoff game right now, the Patriots would win.
Really?
Because we all know Bill Belichick immediately went home and he watched film. That's exactly what it
If
is.
this game was in Foxborough, it would be different, however.
Yeah, probably. But I still think, even if they were to lose in their home stadium at Gillette, I still think Bill Belichick goes home, even after a Sunday night game, watches film the entire week, just picks apart Lamar Jackson, and I think if they were to play them in a playoff game, the Patriots would dominate the Ravens. Maybe not dominate, but I think they would win by probably more than 7 points, because that's what Bill Belichick does, is he will pick apart no matter who it is. Like we saw last year in the Super Bowl, the Rams were unbelievably good, but he only held them 3 points. So I think, that game, if that game were to happen, say it does happen in this playoffs upcoming season, I think the Patriots were to win that because Bill Belichick goes in and he just picks apart Lamar Jackson in film.
To answer your question, are they the biggest threat to the Patriots in the AFC? The answer is absolutely yes right now. And you could obviously make a case for the Chiefs once they get Patrick Mahomes back. But the answer is yes. 37 points on that defense that we've been calling maybe the best we've seen in years for New England, especially that defensive backfield. Lamar Jackson had a field day, man. That guy is an absolute freak of an athlete. He is a really good quarterback. I was so wrong on Lamar Jackson. He is really, really good. He's in the conversation for most valuable player, too. He's right up there with Russell Wilson and Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, I think they are, but I do agree with what Jackson said. I think Bill Belichick and company, depending on where that game would be, I hope we get a rematch because what we saw yesterday was an absolute explosion offensively for Baltimore. If you would have told me they were scoring 37 points against New England, I'd call you an absolute idiot. I never saw that coming. 37 points for Baltimore's offense is absolutely insane. So good on Baltimore. Congrats to the Ravens. They have to be the biggest threat. They absolutely have to be.
I think they made the rest of the NFL fan base happy.
You have to be, right? You
Because
have to
the
be.
Patriots lost. And except for people in New England, or not New England, in Boston, it's just like, wow, the Patriots lost. Thank the Lord.
Right. Second half of your question, though, the worst team in the NFL. I've been saying it since pretty much week 2. I never thought it was Miami. I've thought it's been Cincinnati the last 2 seasons. I don't think Cincinnati's a good football team. Their talent doesn't want to be there, and their talent isn't playing well. So I'll go with Cincinnati. However, I need to call myself out quick. The New York Jets, I was so high on them this year. I thought they were a playoff team. Adam Gase was absolutely the wrong hire. Mike McCarthy was the right fit in New York. He wanted to be there. Mike McCarthy was the right fit for New York, and they have so much talent on that team. It's ridiculous they only have 1 win. It is ridiculous. New York should be a playoff team. They have so much talent, and they're horrible. So I don't get that, but Cincinnati's my pick for the worst.
New York is a bit of an interesting case. They were able to beat Dallas at home, which surprised everybody. But then they had that terrible loss on Monday Night Football against New England, and then they were hopefully trying to get back on the right track. They lost another game the week after that. And now with this loss to Miami, the team that was probably considered the worst team before they lost them on Sunday, that it does, you take a look at it, it's like New York actually might be, in my opinion, now the worst team, especially with their head coach decision to go with Adam Gase, who did not fit out that well in Miami.
Wow.
How does that work? What are the circumstances of that going to be like for the rest of the season for the Jets?
I'm curious for how long he'll be there. I'm curious to see if they can turn this around at all. They should. I mean, again, they have the talent to do so. They have the pretty darn easy schedule the rest of the way. I still could see this team. I wouldn't be shocked if they won 6-7 games, but they should be winning more than that. They have the talent to do so, and they just haven't. They totally missed on that hire.
Well, even though it's still not a lost season yet for the Jets, they will have to find a lot of ways to turn it around if they want to get back in the winning column. After our final commercial break, we'll be back to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks season so far, and we'll do some buy or sell. You're watching the Sports Hub on SBTV.
UW-Stevens Point is home.
It's a university where professors know your name and get you involved in research.
They inspire us to realize big dreams.
At UW-Stevens Point, sustainability is what we stand for.
Our beautiful campus encourages exploration, developing new fields, and problem solving for the real world.
It's a great place to launch your career.
UW-Stevens Point is home.
Apply today at uwsp.edu.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
Welcome back into the show. The Milwaukee Bucks are currently sitting in 4th in the Eastern Conference standings with a record of 4-2. The Bucks won their previous 2 games this past weekend, taking care of the Orlando Magic easily on Friday and then getting revenge for their heartbreaking conference finals series loss against the defending champion Toronto Raptors on Saturday. Guys, let's talk about the Bucks real quick. How different is this team in comparison to last year's great start?
I wouldn't put too much stock into it, honestly. Obviously, you have a little bit of a different roster. You have the same star pieces. You have the same head coach. It's still early. Obviously, you'd like to do what you did last year, but nonetheless, I think it's too early to put too much stock into it. They should be winning ball games that they haven't. They should be in every game. They've blown a couple of leads that they shouldn't have. But again, it's still early. I think the issues will be ironed out within the next couple weeks. In 2 weeks, we'll have the same conversation, I'm sure. I might have a different opinion if the ways that they've started continue. But right now, I'm not going to put too much stock into it. We're only 8 games in, right? So you still have, quick math here, 74 games left to play. There's a lot of season left. I think it's way too early to say this is not a finals team, because it still is in my mind.
I definitely agree 100% with Alex. It's early. You know, they got a big win. I just think they just need the time, and I think that's the biggest factor for them right now. Is I think they set the bar high for themselves. They were like, okay, you know what? Let's just go in and wipe everyone out of the water. But I think they just need to really just fall back on themselves, just really get back to what they're good at. And I think that's what will bring them to being the finals team or Eastern Conference team that they were. So I think that's just the biggest thing for them is just to, you know, calm down, play their style of basketball, and they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think all 3 of us have high hopes for this Bucks team. Again, Alex, as you mentioned, it's still early in the season. Last year they were off to a 7-0 start, but this year, dropping 2 games already, nothing really to be concerned about. This team is going to be very good this year, I feel. The Bucks are only a game and a half behind the conference-leading Philadelphia 76ers, and tonight they will play on the road against the Minnesota Timberwolves with tip-off scheduled for 7 p.m. Now to finish up the show here, guys, we'll do a round of buy or sell. First one, talking some baseball here, even not the season's done. Garrett Cole will sign with the New York Yankees.
I'll turn to you.
I hate the Yankees, but I'm going to buy it. And I don't want to buy it, but I'm going to buy it.
I'm actually going to sell this one, but here's why. I think Steven Strasburg is going to sign with the Yankees. I don't think they'll go for Garrett Cole. Steven Strasburg over the weekend opted out just after the parade for the Nationals, opted out, 4 years, $100 million left on his contract. I think he goes and puts on the pinstripes. I think Garrett Cole either stays in Houston or goes elsewhere because he's going to make some cha-ching. But nonetheless, I'm going to sell it.
Interesting. I'm going to sell it as well, but I think Garrett Cole is going to go to a big market team somewhere else in the major leagues.
I could see the Dodgers.
I could as well.
Dodgers, Cubs, who knows? But some team that'll pay him a lot of money.
Yes.
Next one, the Jaguars will stick with Gardner Minshew at quarterback despite Nick Foles returning from injury.
I love Gardner Minshew, but he just hasn't played the football that he played in his first couple of games. Right. And I think that's the reason that I'm going to sell it and think that Nick Foles will be back.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it as well. I'll take Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles starts. We'll see how long. And they've already kind of eased him in, so I'm going to sell it as well.
I will sell that as well. I think it's time for Nick Foles to come back. Final one, the Bears will bench Mitch Trubisky for Chase Daniel if he continues to struggle.
I'm surprised they haven't already. I'll buy it.
I'm going to buy it too.
3 buys. Easy enough for all of us. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I'd like to thank Alex and Jackson for joining me on the show today, and a big thank you to our technical staff and all their hard work to make this show possible. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at SBTV UWSP Television, or follow us on Instagram at SBTV_UWSP. You can also follow our SBTV Sports Twitter account as well. Lastly, don't forget to check out the UWSP Athletics page for all things Pointer sports. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of the Sports Hub.
Peace!